all of us back together again in the studio. Everyone's had a little chance to decompress on and off over the last few weeks. And in Texas, the start of the high school football season, but also the start of the college football season with a handful of games this week. And Baylor football with the announcement that QB1 will be Gerry Bohanon, the former Earl High School star. We'll hear from his high school coach. Also, Cole Barber joins us. He's going to have his thoughts, and also former Baylor quarterback and analyst J.J. Joe today. Plus, we check in on South Carolina, the Gamecocks, and where they are as the season's about to start. Paul Catalina to my left, Craig Smoak to my right. Thank you for those. Our lines are available, 254-339-1122. The phone calls, the text line. YouTube is already lighting up on 365 Sports. Any surprise, Paul, that's Gerry Bohanon?
Not to me. I mean, you know, when you look at what Gerry Bohanon's skill set is and what the limitations of the offense are, he would probably have been my leader in the clubhouse. Look, he's a big guy who's super athletic, who can escape the pocket. And when you have an offensive line that you are, to say the least, unsure of right now, you want the one who probably can take the most hits and the one who can make something happen with his feet. If you go back and watch the Big 12 championship game before Gerry Bohanon also had to leave injured, he played okay, given the fact that Oklahoma knew that Baylor's offensive line was a weakness even in 2019 and was blitzing like crazy and getting after an inexperienced quarterback. He made a couple really nice throws in that game and got out a couple times. So I would say that it's not a big surprise to me.
We've seen the writing on the wall, Craig, over the last few weeks. Your thoughts about Gerry Bohanon as QB1?
Yeah, I'm just glad they got a decision made. You know, it's something that I think was lingering and kind of hanging over their heads. And if you listen to Dave Aranda on Friday, it seemed pretty clear that they needed to make a decision. You know, that it was getting time to just, you know, pick the guy. And thankfully, Gerry Bohanon on Saturday at their scrimmage was able to show enough that they felt comfortable in doing so. So I think that's a positive sign. They didn't have to, you know, see Saturday's scrimmage and make a choice either way, but they clearly saw enough. I think it just jives with mostly what we've been hearing as of late and just the thoughts of what, you know, Jeff Grimes' offense might look like, especially with an offensive line that's still a bit TBD as far as what they're going to be able to actually do. So he makes a lot of sense for them wanting to run the football, pound the football. I think he's got a lot of great skill guys around him. I think the offensive line is seemingly making strides. So now they can all rally around one guy, and they know who to look to. And, you know, at the same time, for these backup quarterbacks, I wrote in an article, just because he was named the starter for this game doesn't mean that, you know, he's just going to have a stranglehold in the position. He's still going to have to go out there and perform. He's still going to have to go out there and prove why he's the starting quarterback week in and week out, and I hope he does that. Gary's waited a long time, sat behind Charlie Brewer for 3 years, worked hard, kept his head down, and now he's earned this opportunity. So congratulations to him, and hopefully he's really, truly the guy.
Craig Smoak has an article in the Sikkim 365 premium section at Sikkim365.com. Colt has his thoughts as well. And then I did a little bit of digging. Just, you know, again, Dave Aranda, we'll hear from him from Friday. Well, what he was talking about with the quarterback position, I tried to push him a little bit on kind of where they were. And in the end, he said Saturday's scrimmage, which was Saturday, could help with the decision-making. We have that here in just a second. But bottom line is this, and we're going to hear from his high school coach, Albert Coleman, just a couple of minutes on his conversation with Gerry Bohanon. This doesn't mean Blake Shapen or Jacob Zeno or Kyron Drones or whoever else are not a part of the equation, because things can change rapidly. But this is about Gerry Bohanon almost willing himself to be the starting quarterback, at least for now, and possibly for extended amount of time, with his work ethic, concentration, his focus. And in some cases, a lot of the teammates, they wanted whoever was the best quarterback and whoever's going to be next man up when that happens, if that happens as well. But I think that you kind of get an impression that the teammates knew that Gerry Bohanon, I asked him about 2 weeks ago, do you feel like this is your time? Is this your time? And he didn't want to answer that. I wouldn't say that is kind of what he said. He wasn't going to jump out there, because that would have been the easy thing to say. Here is Dave Aranda. Friday afternoon, after their practice, this is Aranda when he was kind of asked about the quarterback position and a couple of follow-up questions as well.
Closer to naming a quarterback, or is that still going to be a while? Or?
Well, I hope, it's sooner than later. I'd like it to be. I think for the team, I think for the individuals that are competing I think for everyone involved, I think there's times where offensively I feel sometimes, and some of the competition things that we've done where, if there really was a guy that just had the title of starter, it might have been different because he'd been empowered to say this and say that. And I think anytime guys are competing, you're not getting that. And so I think, the team needs it. But we don't want to give it to a guy if he's not completely the guy. And I think it's got to be earned. I think the scrimmage here has a lot to do with it.
Do you feel, not the word disappointment is not the right word, but do you feel disappointed you don't yet have that? And does that mean it's competitive, or does that mean you don't have one?
It just means we don't have one. I think it's been awfully competitive. I think today's a great example. And so we had 2 minutes today, so we had guys moving the ball down the field. Gary's doing it some with his legs. Blake was doing it some with his arm. Kyron's getting the ball off quick. Zeno is making the right reads. And so we just, they're each competing at a level where you want a guy to pull away. And so we're hoping we can see some of that on Saturday.
For example, let's say you played this Saturday.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know who that would be.
Correct. Yep.
Anything else specific that you want to get out of tomorrow's scrimmage?
All right, so that was Dave Aranda Friday. I text Craig because I was there and said, hey, you need to listen to Aranda on the quarterback situation. So he said at that time they didn't know. But apparently whatever they saw on Saturday during the scrimmage, J.J. Joe was there, former Baylor quarterback, will join us at 4:30, was enough for them to pull the trigger.
Yeah, we got some insight from some people who were in attendance. I think there was a post or two from fans who were there, people who were allowed to be there. And Brian Etheridge also was able to gather some tidbits as well. I think what was very interesting was the fact that Jacob Zeno didn't really seem to be in the mix. It was Gerry Bohanon and it was Blake Shapen, based on what's been reported. So that's interesting, given where the starting quarterback predictions were at the end of last year, with a lot of people just assuming after a year of clamoring for Jacob Zeno that he would end up being the guy ultimately. And I don't even know if he finished second in the race, to be perfectly honest with you. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, Gary went and did what he needed to do. And quite frankly, guys, he should. He's the guy who's been on campus the longest. He's the one who sat behind Charlie Brewer for 3 years. He's the only one that's seen more than like a couple drives worth of actual action. I mean, I know Zeno's seen a little bit more than that, but only a little bit more than that. Gary's been in, amongst that group far more than any of the others. So he has the most experience. He's been on campus the longest, and he's the oldest guy. So, for someone who, even when he wasn't in a starting position, was already getting, a lot of respect from teammates, I'm not all that surprised by it. I'm not surprised for all the reasons that I've mentioned. But I am, looking forward to seeing what he does, because, like I said, just because you're the starter for game one doesn't mean you're guaranteed for, games 2 through the rest of them. So happy for him, but still got to go out there and actually do it.
Yeah, and look, Gary's been here. I think some people don't realize that he's played through quite a bit of injuries too.
Yeah.
He's dealing with injuries. So part of the reason that Jacob Zeno saw the light of day in the Big 12 championship game is because Gerry Bohanon had a rib injury, a pretty bad one that he was able to play through. But then once he took about 3 or 4 hits, it was like, no, they're not going to do this anymore. And he took some big shots. There's one from Kenneth Murray. I went back and watched today. And Kenneth Murray, you could see it. Like that was one of the ones that's like, yeah, I think maybe we need to put him back out of this game. And Zeno comes in, and Zeno's got a fantastic arm. But, if it was just about an arm, there'd be a lot of guys who'd been quarterbacks in the world. And so Jacob Zeno's clearly not the guy right now, and it's Gerry Bohanon. And I'm not really surprised that Blake Shapen is the 2. To be that honest, I mean, because, he's the one that we keep hearing has maybe the most complete package of quarterbacking. He's just inexperienced. So like we've said on the show before, the quarterback week 1 may not be the quarterback week 7, but Gerry Bohanon probably gives you the best chance right now to stabilize an offense.
Well, we're going to hear from his high school coach. And we had Albert Coleman on back when he committed to Baylor, among some others as well. Listen, there's a long way to go. They have a couple of weeks, less than 2 weeks until they play against Texas State, and we'll see what that's like. And you do hope that the work ethic, the commitment, the focus, the desire, what all of that translates on the field. Apparently it did enough in the scrimmage on Saturday. And now what does it mean? Well, I've seen a lot of thoughts, people kind of saying, okay, Zeno's gone. I don't know if that's the case. He handled last year pretty well. That doesn't mean he wanted to handle it again. But don't give up on Blake Shapen or Jacob Zeno, although that's their decision on what they do, because it's so easy now just to, okay, I'm leaving. But I don't think Jacob Zeno's thrown his last pass at Baylor, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think we need to just kind of wait and see what happens. Again, name the last 5 greatest Baylor starting quarterbacks, talent-wise, however you want to do it, and tell me if any of them ever missed time for injury.
Robert Griffin III, yes.
Seth Russell, yes.
Seth
Bryce
Russell,
Petty, yes. Even Jarrett Stidham, yes. They got all the way down to Lynx Hawthorne playing quarterback, a few years back. So all these All-American type of quarterbacks they've had, all of them have missed time at some point. So, if you're one of these backups, you can, pout or whatever, which I don't think any of them are doing. But, there's 2 ways to go. You can go the Gerry Bohanon route of not being named the starter right away and putting your head down for 3 years and working and then taking advantage of your opportunities when you get them. Or you can go the I want playing time right away route, like a Tate Martell, and we see where that's taken him. So it's just up to the individual, and maybe, for somebody in that room, maybe another place is better for them ultimately. But right now is definitely not the time to just knee jerk and go, oh, I'm not the starter, I'm out of here. And if someone does do that, which I'm not expecting, but if they do, they do, and you move on, and best of luck to you. But They've got their starting quarterback. That's the news, not what the other guys might do now.
That's exactly right. And Colt wrote up something about it. Craig wrote up something about it. Paul and I and me are here as well to kind of give us our thoughts. JJ Joe will give us his thoughts. He's going to join us at 4:30. He's the color analyst for Baylor Radio and also a former Baylor quarterback as well. Now, there's that impending, or I guess imminent,